Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
This episode is brought to you by Nerds Gummy Clusters, the sweet treat that always elevates the vibe. With a sweet gummy surrounded with tangy, crunchy nerds, every bite of Nerds Gummy Clusters brings you a whole new world of flavor. Whether it's game night, on the way to a concert, or kicking back with your crew, unleash your senses with Nerds Gummy Clusters.
In this episode, we're heading across the Atlantic to explore the world of hunting in Ireland. We'll dive into the country's unique hunting traditions, the challenges and opportunities for hunters, and how wild game is used and appreciated. Plus, we'll discuss Irish wild game cooking, favorite recipes, and how these traditions compare to those in North America. Grab a seat and listen in.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
You can tell by introduction, we're going to be chatting with a new friend from across the pond, as they say.
Across the pond.
And we're going to get down into a little bit of sort of the culture and activity of hunting in Ireland and of course food as well. But I think Adam and I wanted to broaden the podcast a bit this year, and this was one of the goals, was to bring in more of the international hunting community and get new perspectives and new ideas and just overall kind of expand our knowledge and then share it with you as well through the process. So I will introduce our guest here in a moment. Just as a heads up, next episode we're going to be chatting with Pascal Baudard, who is a self-described culinary alchemist and author of 3 books: Wildcrafted Fermentation, The Wildcrafted Brewer, Wildcraft Vinegars, and The New Wildcrafted Cuisine. So excited to dive in those. I'm going to have to flip through the pages of those books before we chat with Pascal, but it should be a fun conversation. So that'll be next up after this episode, I think. So, all right, cool. Well, I'll introduce. So today's guest is the host of the Irish Hunting Podcast, designed to educate people on all things hunting in Ireland. Their goal is to help bring hunting to a wider community, shining a light on the benefits and necessities of hunting in the modern era. Anthony Grogan, welcome to the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
Guys, thanks a million for having me. It's a real honor to be on. I'm a fan of your show, so thanks a million for inviting me on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're happy we could make it work, too, even with the times. It just lucked out today. Adam was doing the scheduling, and I happened to be at home, so it was perfect. That way it's not too late for you.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. It's actually perfect time, and I think, apologies, I've been kind of in and out of action the last couple of weeks, as you guys know, so we're delighted to finally get on it.
Yeah, I'm glad we made it work.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your background and were you always into hunting? Like, what got you started?
Yeah, I suppose when I was younger, hunting kind of came a little bit in waves in Ireland. So a little bit of kind of the history and the background of it. Obviously, it was as you guys may or may not know, Ireland was occupied for a large period of time by our nearest and dearest neighbours, and so wild game was predominantly owned back in the day by them. So the Irish people were essentially banned from hunting, so well, from legal hunting. So we became good poachers, but not so much in the traditional sense. So and then obviously after occupation ended, there was a little bit of dip in wild game, because obviously the likes of your pheasant and stuff like that, imported game was predominantly brought in by the British. So there was a little bit of a lull in the takeover, and then Irish clubs started to pop up, and so we have like a structure now where there's game clubs like in every town, village, and each one kind of controls their own little pocket of land, so to get farmers to essentially give them permission, and you create like a club, and on that then you can legally hunt. So slightly different than the States and Canada, Um,
That's sort of what I was going to ask. Is it all so? The hunting clubs are all kind of private land focused.
correct,
Is there
correct.
any public hunting land in Ireland?
There is pockets. It's state-owned forestry, but you
Hmm.
have to apply for what's called a lease. So every year the leases come up, and it's like a highest bidder type format. So it's a bit
Oh,
crazy. And they tend to be, snapped up by maybe some of the outfitters who bring in guests from around the world and stuff. So yeah, and then obviously there is pockets of land that will be more readily available at a lower cost, but obviously then there's the density of animals tend not to be there. So um, that's the way it works. And then so I kind of grew up in the middle of this, a little bit of farming background. The family would have had a little bit of family farming in the background, but not a whole pile. My dad had a shotgun, but rarely used it. But I was always intrigued. My mum would have grown a lot of her food at home, vegetables and stuff like that, and got a love for food and the outdoors and from that perspective. And then when me and my wife started to build our own house, we kind of had a small holding here at one stage, we goats and pigs and chickens and stuff like that. And then my business took off, and my wife got sick, and I had 5 kids, and all of that combined meant we had to allocate space for different reasons. That kind of dwindled away, and so I was always kind of looking for, to subsidize that in some way. So
hmm.
yeah, in my early 20s, then I got my first shotgun, joined the local club, um, and went out with my shotgun, not knowing what to do or where to go, or I had no dog or anything like that, and yeah, start to learn by how I was doing it wrong more so than being shown how to do it right, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I know
No,
that
no,
all
it
too well.
does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's probably the best way. I think. So yeah, started shooting small game, rabbits, pheasant, some pigeon, stuff like that. The odd duck. And then it progressed on. A buddy of mine was a deer stalker, and he was always at me to, come out, and he brought me out, and he had the rifle, and he used to shoot, and I used to carry the game, and that was the trade. So that's how it started. Then got my first rifle, and over here you have to apply for your deer stalking license, and now you have to do a course. So you have to do a course before you get your license, and you apply for your license annually.
Okay.
So that's the kind of way it works. And yeah, and started to hunt deer quite unsuccessfully for the first season or two, and then just hit my stride then once I knew what I was doing, and I haven't looked back. And I'd say I tried to estimate it before I came on, but I definitely 70% of our meat here in the family, there's 7 of us here, would come from some form
Wow.
of wild game.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, when we started the podcast, I suppose it was similar to you guys. I think we've kindred in that way. We wanted to try and probably showcase I suppose the beauty and the benefits of wild game for a family. It's affordable, it's economical, it's obviously highly nutritious. And my kids, we talked about during the week, I think from 21 down to 2, I think only ever about 3 antibiotics in the life, or 4 maybe, from the 21-year-old down to the touch wood, down to the newborn. So obviously, I'm not a scientist, but I would lean towards the wild game and the homesteading and stuff of that at the start as well. I think that's a huge benefit from a health point of view.
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you. We do the same. Our kids are primarily wild game only as well. Like we'll do wild fish and stuff like that, but try to keep it that way. And it's been similar to kind of the lifestyle we live, and then the reinforcement of like good food just seems to produce healthier children.
Yeah, and again, I've started. I was just saying before we kicked off there. I started fishing probably maybe 2 years ago now. So every summer, then I try and stock the freezer with a bit of fish now. For the last 2 seasons. So that's kind of supplementing that bit of the pocket in the middle of summer where game is off the cards, and it gives you a little bit of a variance as well, you know. And like that, I'm not a chef, not like you guys, but I've a strong interest in cooking food and trying to make it amenable to kids, you know. So, you know, like your pheasant goujons rather than just a roast pheasant, stuff like that. Make it kind of more fun, you know, meatballs and stuff like that, you know, with venison and so on. Just try and I suppose introduce it without having your stereotypical pot roast and the way it used to be done. Yeah, and I've learned probably as I went along, similar to the shooting. I butcher myself quite poorly if somebody of your guys' caliber was looking in, I'd say, but I manage and I like to prepare it myself because I know what way I want to cook it, so I can break it down the way I want to break it down. And I think that's the beauty of hunting yourself. You know, you can I can hang it for how long I want to hang it for, you know, and I try and test it. You know, I pushed it probably to the limit at some stage and then peeled it back a little bit. And I kind of found a sweet spot with deer and so on. So I have it the way to my taste, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly what we try to champion here is doing it yourself and controlling all those different aspects. Yeah,
Exactly.
so many
Exactly.
benefits.
There's nothing better, you know. So yeah, and that I've kind of on the through the podcast, then we've met similar to you guys, you know, really good fellow hunters and chefs, and each one has kind of added a little bit to the story, and we friends in the barbecuing sphere over here and smoking, and again that's kind of complemented it. So I remember my first time cooking venison. I think it's the pitfall of everyone who starts is, you know, you get your piece of wild game and you nearly cook it to death, you know. So you have this kind of dried out piece of leather and you say, oh, Jesus, this is not great, you know. And then by degrees, you start to learn how to cook it properly, which is the big secret, as you guys know. It's kind of just really expanded both from a personal point of view and then obviously for the wider community, the podcast over here. We've a lot of people would tune in now who wouldn't have ever dreamed of hunting and still don't hunt, but they come to one of us. Do you know of somebody who can provide a bit of wild game? We want to try that, or what, you know. So you find these little green shoots of interest, which is really cool. That was the whole point of it in the first place, you know.
How long have you guys been recording the show?
I think we're doing about 2 years now. I think
Nice.
about 2 years. I think it was 2 years in October. We didn't know what we were doing at the start. I think we were talking into microphones that we thought were working, and the laptop was picking us all that kind of jazz.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, do you ever watch you know Zoolander where they're looking into the
Computers,
the PC and they're tapping it? It was something similar to that at the start. But yeah, we've got there, and as I say, we've friends. We hunt. We've gone to Hungary to hunt. We're going over to the UK in 4 weeks to hunt over there, and we've had some guests on from your part of the world as well, and we've kind of made friends around the world, and we've had people over hunting with us, which is cool. I think that's the beauty of it. You know, we're all kind of interconnected that way, and it's kind of like a universal or a worldwide family in a certain sense because we've all a similar point of view and an interest, which is really cool. You know, it's really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely it's been cool just meeting so many people from around the world on this podcast, like from our side. Yeah, I feel like I make a new friend every week. It's great.
It's cool. It's cool that way, isn't it? You know, and have you guys ever hunted across this neck of the woods?
No,
I have not. No, I wanted to. I don't think I've ever put a plan into fruition.
As I think we were chatting to Adam Grenda, and he said I've no aspirations to hunt anywhere else. You guys have probably the mecca of hunting over there. You know, between north and south, and yeah, there's no real need to go unless you're going for different species, obviously. But
I think I would. I mean, I would like to experience it. Just to me, also too, like a hunting trip is much more than just going out and shooting the animal and bringing the meat back and having the meat to sort of cook. It's like the travel aspect appeals to me, going to meet new people, like immersing yourself in like that environment. I mean, even hunting here in the States, if I'm to like go out to Wyoming, like we'll spend a day just doing kind of touristy things, I guess, is for lack of a better word, just to kind of like experience it. Because I mean, it's great to hunt, it's great to enjoy the wilderness and be outside, but it's also cool to interact on the human aspect of it as well, and just like touch base with people and create those relationships and learn.
Absolutely, man. I think we our last hunting trip we were in Hungary just before Christmas, and it was our second year. We hunted wild boar the previous season, and we went back to hunt red deer this year. And like that, you just find about the traditions. There's when the animals were brought back, how they're presented is really important. They have you'll probably see on some of our socials. They create like a wreath around the animal, to honor the animal, give it its last bite, wide man shell. It's put an oak leaf branch in its mouth, and when all at the end of the week, all the animals they're put in a larder and then they're presented, and there's musicians come out with these
Oh, wow.
traditional horns and stuff. So it's completely different than what we're used to. But you also learn, like what you said there about they have a huge emphasis on the management aspect, so
Mm-hmm.
they take out the weaker or the more danger, the killer stags, the 2 points and stuff to allow the good genetically strong physical animals to prosper and then pass on their genetics and so on. So they've a really high standard of animal, because they manage them really well, and they found like unique kind of ways of keeping them happy while interacting with humans. So obviously the land is cut up with roadways and motorways and stuff now, and obviously the deer then they like to go out because they're after salt. They love the salt, so the roads over there will be heavily salted. So what they've done now is they get these like nutrient blocks, and they put them in the forestry, and that keeps the animals kind of happier to stay where
Mm-hmm.
they are. And if there's a really harsh winter, they go out and feed them in the forest and stuff. So ironically, you guys probably will attest to this all around the world. You've animal activists and talking about helping and saving animals and so on and so forth. Just in that last paragraph there that I'm after reciting, that management of animals would not be done, if it wasn't for the hunters, because we want the animals to survive so we can have a
Yep.
replenished stock. It's kind of like the hunter is the carer of it's kind of like a double-edged sword, isn't it? And it's
Yeah.
hard for people who don't hunt to understand that.
Yeah, I feel like the people who are against it care about the idea of animals, and hunters care about the animals in a big way. And it's
Exactly.
we have the
Exactly.
chance to be up close and personal in the woods and in the fields and dealing with these
Exactly.
animals, and it brings it from like an idea or an ideal to the actual physical presence. And I think that enables us to sometimes have a better idea what should actually be done, even though we're the ones also killing
Yeah.
them too, which is yeah, like you said, a strange situation. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword. Yeah, it's a weird conundrum. It's kind of like it's a circle that you can't square. But it's on the other side of it. Like I've this season I've passed up on, you know, plenty of animals, more animals than I've shot because either they're too young, so you want to let them see it go another season, or there's a young stag, or like that. They've extended the season over here in Ireland, for female deer because some of the deers over here are in such plentiful numbers in certain areas, so they've extended the season, and that brings with it its own ethical problems because you know the deer are heavy in calf from now on. So they've extended the season for 2 months. So there's going to be deer that are going to be shot here, which are going to be in heavy in calf. That presents a kind of especially for myself, a moral dilemma. Now, if my freezer is running low and I can't get the animal that I can get, and there's a farm that's um, especially in say up around Wicklow, which is one of the areas which is really really heavily um, populated with Sika deer. Farmers are at their wits' end. So if you're to keep your permission up there, you have to keep managing the animals, or else they'll just get somebody else in. Um, and that's the unfortunate. So you have to try and I suppose balance it. Where you try and get the animals for your freezer early, um, and the correct animals. But as I say, more often than not, I was out this morning and I didn't pull the trigger once, because I didn't see the animal that I wanted. I want a kind of a year and a half or 2 year old young animal for the freezer here for the summer for the barbecuing and stuff. Um, and like that, I've seen plenty of others, but just not the correct animal. So it's kind of like I don't think people who don't hunt quite understand that. I think they have this vision of we go out and we shoot everything, and we leave stuff lying around, and it's kind of just a kind of a bloodthirsty, but it couldn't be further from the truth.
So I am curious, what all are the various species that you guys hunt there in Ireland?
Yes, we've 4 species of deer, right? There's 3 main. We've red, we have fallow, and we have sika. Sika would be probably the most predominant one because they're really, really good at populating. So that's the one that was probably most prominent in, as I said, in around Dublin and Wicklow, that area. But we also have muntjac, little small muntjac. They're, there's they're like the ghost deer, there's mentions of them in certain pockets, but nobody will tell anyone else where they are because everyone wants to keep so I've never seen them, but they are here, I'm assured. So they're the 4 species, and then we have, in terms of birds, then we have your pheasant, grouse, your pigeon, and then we have 6 species of duck. I think 6 we can shoot. It was reduced last season with no real scientific backing. They took some of the species off it, and then we have your rabbit and hare. So yeah, that'll be our kind of our spread of wild game.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've something to do most months of the year.
Okay.
When I was just saying off air there, our deer season traditionally came to an end around now, but it's been extended to March and April for some species, and it was rabbits would take over now, and pigeons, stuff like that, and obviously a bit of fishing then as well. So
when does the deer season open?
it opens in September for stags, and then October, I think, for females. It's kind of changed a little bit. They've brought some back and some forward, so it's kind of you have to keep up to date with the dates. But yeah, that predominantly September. So for stags, and then your duck, your pheasant is November. You've a month to shoot grouse, and then you've geese as well as duck, and then a lot of the birds will end at the end of January. So you've woodcock and stuff like that as well.
Does your deer stalker license cover all the different types of deer?
Yes. Yeah, so it's once you have your license, it covers you for all the deer, and then you give in your returns at the end of the year, and that's the only method they have then of kind of estimating how many deer is shot versus how many they think is out there. So there's no real, in true Irish form, there's no scientific as of yet. Ironically, the hunting community is providing most of the concrete data to the people who are trying to get some of it kind of stopped. So it's a weird situation, but
it sounds pretty familiar, Justin?
Yeah. pretty I think reflective of here, and as far as like they look at harvest numbers. So if you harvest deer here, you have to report the harvest. Like usually most places are like 24 hours, 22, 72 hours, or 24, 72 hours. You have to report your harvest, and then a lot of the population estimates outside that are merely just estimations. They'll go into like a square mile of area and they'll count all the animal in that square mile, and they'll be like, all right, well, based on that, there's X many in the entire state or whatever. So it's a bit of a guessing game. Yeah.
It's not because ironically, when you're out hunting, you find, that the deer, especially deer, they like certain conditions, they like a little bit of cover, obviously, that they can get out people's way, and they like to be able to come out to graze and then shoot back in if something. But if you're, they do it over here as well. If you're counting it on that data, it's not going to make sense because there's very little forestation relative to kind of cropland now and so on. Ironically, and this is the big, I think we're talking about double-edged swords there a minute ago. If you take it crop farming now, to feed the masses and to feed the vegans and vegetarians and so on, especially over here. That's under siege in certain areas from, as we said, Sika deer, because they're really nimble, they're really quick, and they are called the ghost deer. We see them and then they're gone. And like that, the first ones they call will be the hunter to come and protect the crop. So it's a really, really weird situation where take care of this problem and then we'll go back to not liking you again,
Yeah.
But
It's crazy how people act when you threaten their food source.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Funny enough, we'll be fine. If it all goes pear-shaped in the morning and the world goes blackout, hunters will in the main be relatively equipped to deal with that. But we've seen it. We had a couple of storms here just the last couple of weeks, and it's like you can spot the people who are not going to do well in an emergency. Like 3 nights without electricity, and it's like the end of the world. Where that to me is like, I remember COVID. When the lockdowns. And there was people kind of, and I don't get me wrong, I know there's other sides where you're trying to get the loved ones and so on, but I was there. This is bliss, man. The phone wasn't ringing. I didn't have to, I could just throw me gun on my back and just walk for miles, something like heaven. But I was just saying as well, bow hunting over here isn't. That's one of the areas you guys we have. We'd be a little bit in awe of. You guys get to do a little bit of bow hunting over there.
When was that law or rule put into place that there's no bow hunting allowed in the country?
I don't know. It's as long as I've been hunting, it's been in. I think it was in some way animal rights activists and some sort of arms kind of laws that they were worried about. People going around, shooting. Now it's ironically. So it's not illegal to own one. It's just illegal to hunt with one.
Oh.
So go figure.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It splits the community over here. But I think, in my own opinion, I think it's probably the truest form. The more I look at it and the more I delve into it, it's because you have to get close to the animal. You have to be really in tune with what you're doing. With the wind and with your surroundings and so on. Rifle hunting, obviously that plays a part, don't get me wrong, but not to the same extent as bow hunting.
I think the bow hunting, it's more visceral. Like you're in it, and so much can go wrong when everything else is going right. And I grew up a bit of bow hunting and then primarily rifle for most of my life, and then about 5 years ago I got back into archery again, and when I was out in Colorado and chasing elk up in the mountains and all that, and it's like, even still, it's, you can prep and train and practice and shoot and do all these things, and it's like you may never get close enough to anything to like pull the bowstring back. Or like this fall I was sitting in a blind and had a deer come out probably 35 yards, and I was lined up perfect, and whatever happened, I shot right over its back, and it's like that was it. That was my shot
Game
for
over.
the whole season. So it's wild.
But like what you said, I think it's that we've said it many times on our podcast, or probably you guys would attest to it as well. Same thing. It's kind of like hunting's like, it's like the throwback to our ancestors. There's something about it coming back with something over your shoulder or something in the game bag, to present it to the family. Now that doesn't kind of make sense to most people, because you can just I had a doctor, but this is no messing, on our socials come on, and he said, I just don't understand you hunters. Why can't you just go down to the supermarket and buy your meat like everyone else? So he had no issue with meat. He just said the issue with hunting. So I don't know. I didn't respond. I didn't understand how to quite comprehend what he was trying to get at. But I think that there's definitely, when you come home and you've your food source that where it's came from, it's had a good life, it's no antibiotics or chemicals or force fed or any of that kind of stuff. It was grazing. The stress on the animal is minimal. All that kind of stuff, and then you can prepare it yourself, and then you can cook a really, really good meal for your family. I just think it's full circle for me. It ticks all the boxes, and
Yeah.
um, the more you get into it. I had actually a debate with a friend of mine. She was a physio, who was doing work on my shoulder, and she's a vegan for no other reason other for than environmental issues. She's no issue with meat, and which I can admire. And we kind of got into a bit of debate, and I said to her, I could probably guarantee you that my carbon footprint is a lot lower than yours. I'm not a scientist, but and she said, "There's no way." And she lives about 5 kilometers from me. Um, and then I started to tell her about where I get my meat source and so on, and she said, "Oh, there's no deer here." I said, "You will never see them because you'll never be up at the right
Yeah.
time. Yeah, if you don't know what to look for, they'll be gone before you'll even know." And she couldn't believe that within a 5 kilometer radius of me that there was good populations of deer and wild game and so on. And she kind of blew her mind. But I think they're the kind of conversations that we need to be having to because I think there's an educational aspect to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So good, so good, so good.
Get ready, because it's time to save at your Nordstrom Rack store. Now through February 23rd, take an extra 40% off red tag clearance boots, jackets, and sweaters. We're talking the best cold weather styles from Vince, Cole Haan, Sam Edelman, and more. All on sale for even less. All sales final. You never know what you'll find, but you know it's gonna be so good. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Sergeant and Mr. Smith, you're gonna love this house.
Bunk beds in a closet?
There's no field manual for finding the right home. But when you do, USAA Homeowners Insurance can help protect it the right way. Restrictions apply.
So I was going to ask too, you kind of answered a little bit. So I know in some European countries, the meat from game animals goes back into like the grocery or the meat system. It goes to a butcher or whatever. You can just bring everything home in Ireland?
We can bring everything home. You can there's and I hope I get this correct. You can legally sell, I think, to one or two animals to a friend if you want.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, and then you can also you do what's called a game handling course. So I think it's a 1 or 2 day course, and you learn how to handle the game properly. From the grolloch to the prep and storage and so on. And if you do that, you get a card, and you can bring it to a local game dealer, and they'll pay you per kilo. So yeah, we do. We're starting to see more and more wild game on the shelves, not in huge quantities, huge prices compared to what we're getting as hunters. But I don't do it. I only kind of hunt for my own and the family, and I've 1 or 2 friends who they mess around and make some venison sausage. They'll give me some, I give them some meat. It's that kind of barter system.
Are there people that make careers out of it?
Yeah, there's wild game dealers now, and there's a couple around the country. So, they're doing. You have like a little pass card, and you can hang your meat up and tag it, and then they pay you, as I say, per kilo. So yeah, and then there's just more and more of that now, because obviously there's in the last probably 2-3 years there's real emphasis now on deer culling over here. They want to lower the amount of deer, which is it's creating a little bit of a divide as well. So yeah, that's obviously the offset of that is there's more deer being shot, and once you bring money into it, you're going to get people coming into the sport or the lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, for money. So that creates a little bit of division, I think.
I think the sort of like market hunting like that, that's not legal in the US or in Canada, aside from like trapping, but that's more focused on the fur sale anyway. But yeah, you can't sell any wild game meat here. There's some exceptions like wild pig. In some cases, like if they have a USDA inspector, so Department of Agriculture inspector, like on site to see the animal get shot and then to inspect it afterwards, they'll allow that. But it's pretty rare. I think there's some other places like Neil Guy down in Texas. I think I've seen wild. Not necessarily sold like in the store. I guess you can, but in like restaurants and stuff. But it's not common at all. And most of if you go to the store and you buy venison, it's coming from a farm.
It's usually red deer. Yeah,
red deer. There's some elk farms too. Like in Colorado, there's elk farms. Ironically, we'll get game animals from other countries that are wild. So like Ireland and Scotland, New Zealand is a big one where they'll import wild game meats in. But yeah, there's a lot of mislabeling and misbranding in the States, and I'm guessing in Canada too, Adam, of like what's wild game and what's not, and people don't know that line between the two.
People assume at the fancy restaurant they're going to, that they're getting wild game, but it's usually not wild game unless there's some shady happenings going on in the restaurant, maybe. But it's interesting. The more we hear from international guests, the more I lean towards some sort of mixed system that that could work for us without jeopardizing the populations of the species here.
Yeah. I think it's like you could cherry pick a little bit from. We look across you guys and say, we'd love to take that element here. I'm not so sure. Obviously, I think there should be limits. Like we're seeing trailer loads of deer now. Being brought, wild deer, like being brought to game dealers. Which is obviously once it's been used, that's fine. But there is a little bit of I don't know. This is from a personal perspective, and I understand there's people with different views. But it's just not something I would be into, It's kind of like it goes against why I got into hunting, But I understand. It's probably contrary to or slightly different to the US and stuff. When we go out here for wild game, and you see wild game on a menu, it's predominantly on the more expensive restaurants, and it is more than likely wild game, because there is, so there's, you get your rabbit terrine, it'll be wild rabbit.
Yeah, wild rabbit.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
It's cool in that.
Once it's being used and it's not being wasted, and there's it's in the food chain. I'm not averse to it. Once it's been used.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about food. If you had to rank sort of some of your favorites as far as like species, what would you rank?
Yeah, venison is top for me. It's probably the meat we'd use most often here. I kind of tend to, with the pheasants and stuff, I tend to stockpile them till I have, because they're a small enough bird. So you kind of, there's not very much meat other than the breasts, small bit on the leg, but very little. So I kind of keep a couple of them, and I'll do some like what I said, goujons or something like that for the kids. Some. Can
you describe a goujon? I'm not sure everyone here.
Yeah. So it's like like if your chicken kind of bites with breaded kind of a coating on the outside,
like nuggets.
Like nuggets. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Similar to. So I do them, kind of make my own bread. So I kind of keep the sourdough. So I keep the breadcrumb, left over stale bits, grind it up, and then I put it in a little bit of buttermilk overnight, and then I'll take it out and I'll kind of flour egg and my crumb, and just do it like that. And I'll do it with like a garlicky mayo dip,
Yeah, that sounds
good.
Bit of
lemon.
Perfect for kids and adults.
Goes down the street here. It's like, exactly. It's exactly, That's kind of like for footy night or something when you're watching the football, and someone just put the big platter in the middle and everyone's just dunking and dipping. So that goes down cool. But venison is, for me, is we'd the kids have venison burgers tonight, but we have some abbreviation of venison. I'd say probably 3-4 nights a week. And my favorite is kind of like and you guys are probably going to look at me when I'm describing how I'm preparing this.
No,
but this is
that's
how
good.
I've evolved, But so yeah, I'll get the top sirloin. So that I think it's top sirloin, the rugby ball. And I always leave it in that roast. And then I'll take it out, and I get some. Do you guys have Worcestershire sauce over there?
Yep.
Yeah. I use a little bit of that because I found that obviously it dries out a little bit when the barbecue, so I tend to put a little bit of that on and have my own barbecue rub, which I make in large kind of vats or pots at a time, just with paprika, cumin, coriander, garlic, onion, salt, bit of brown sugar, and then so I'll have a quantity of that made, and I'll just throw a bit of that on, and that I think the Worcestershire sauce kind of helps this is my take. It infuses a little bit after it gets it into the meat a little bit, and I'll leave that there for a couple of hours, and then high heat on the barbecue, and then I found my sweet spot at 57 degrees internal centigrade temperature. That's my sweet spot, and I'll slice.
That's 135 degrees Fahrenheit.
Thank you. I was just about to look it up. I was like,
yeah, I know. As I was saying that, I was wondering, this is good. It's like inches and millimeters, imperial and so on.
Adam helps me out with my conversions.
Yeah. Well done, Adam. Well done, man. Yeah. Is that in around what you guys are a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah, like medium, mid rare. Yeah. That's perfect. It's
I love that you guys call that the rugby
ball
roast because in here we call it the football roast because the American football
roast.
So it's the same. The same thing.
I'm a rugby player, so I prefer.
Oh, there you go.
I prefer the rugby ball. Yeah, from now on, that's what I'll call it.
There you go. That's yeah. So that's my kind of favorite, and then I just a nice kind of like a sourdough ciabatta, and I'll on the grill when I've the roast doing like peppers, onions, and I'll be a little bit of olive oil and some salt and some seasoning, and that goes on. Bit of grated cheese, some mayo, and that's my steak sandwich. So that's my go-to. Kind of have that once a week. I'd have it 3 times a week if I'm being honest, but but that's my top dish. I really like my comfort food,
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids, sometimes we'll drizzle a bit of maple syrup and stuff like that, and just slice it, drizzle a bit of maple syrup over it, and they'll just come in and take slices as they want. So we tend to do that kind of cooking here, where it's not like traditional plates all the time. It's kind of one big platter in the middle and everyone kind of dives in. We use it as kind of a you find out and if there's any issues and problems, you get the kids talking and so on and so forth, when you're around a table, and especially when they're happy and they're eating good food. I think it helps, so you kind of find out if there's any problems after happening during the day in school or in work or whatever. So it does two purposes, I think, And then I'll do for that. Then I'll traditional Irish stew would be a staple over here. So we've kind of I've kind of melded that in with the venison, and I make my own stock. So I freeze my stock, in quantities, and I use that in my curries and stuff as well. So yeah, I'll go back to just my stock, my veg. I'll fry it off in a little bit of flour, just to brown it, and then I'll stew it then, and juniper berries. And my wife actually, she'll ask me, oh, that was really nice, if I do a curry or I do a stew, what was in that, and then I'll have to think, I should have wrote that down, because depending on what mood I'm in, or if it's cold outside, I'll hit a little bit more spice, or if it's sunny, I'll ease back, and I might go on or Saturdays or weekends, or a bit more comforty, might go a little bit more sweeter or something like that. So depending on what humor I'm in, so I have to start writing it down, because I So, yeah, that was really nice, that one. And then I'll remember that one the next time, and then I'll completely
It's
no,
gone.
I
Yeah.
don't like that. I'll have a little bit more of this, you know. So it's a little bit of that.
That was a huge struggle for me when I started developing recipes. I had never paid any attention to what I was throwing in. I just did it like you said. It depends on my mood, how I'm feeling, what kind of spicy, who's coming over, what they might like. And now when I had to start writing everything down and really testing things out, it was a huge struggle for me.
You were like me doing the Salt Bay thing, you know, with the, the spices.
I think I working in restaurants, like, kind of had the approach of like everything measured and counted so you can figure out how much it costs. And then too, like when I'm cooking at home, like even for myself, I just made like a burger for lunch today, and I was like, I'm like gonna take some seasoning and some soy sauce and this and that, and I was just like, whatever. And like, I know in my mind it's gonna taste good. But yeah, when I'm writing recipes, and sometimes I have to force myself. I'm like, I know this dish is going to be good, and I'm gonna want to share the recipe, so I need to make sure I write it down while I'm cooking, and it's just like an extra step. Mm-hmm. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, it takes the kind of, when you have to do it, it's kind of like it's taking a little bit of fun out of it sometimes. Where you're I think there's a little bit of. I don't want it to sound pretentious, but there's a little bit of mystique. You know, how is this going to turn out? You know, I put a little bit more spice, or I put a little bit of this season in compared to the last one, and so you're and then you watch the family. Then how are they reacting? Do they like that better than the last one? You know, and you're also then you're changing it up a little bit. So I think that's what it's all about. It's about enjoying. And I wouldn't have, if I didn't do that, I probably wouldn't have landed where I am with the food, with the wild food and stuff. I probably would have gave up on it long ago, you know, because I would have just cooked it to death, and say, not for me. Go back to my beef or something. So, I found by tweaking it, and that's what I'd be saying to people who are listening and stuff. Absolutely, use the recipe books as your kind of your foundation. But like, feel free to add a little bit more if you fancy it, or take it out if you don't like it. You know, that's what it's all about. I think you guys have really cool cookbooks, I know, and I think they're I don't know whether you agree or not, but I think that they'd be a foundation, and people can supplement, tweak them to their own tastes, and that's what it's about,
I never want someone to follow my recipe 100%. I want you to make it for you. I made it for me. You make it for you. I'll provide the inspiration and the technique, and then you can take it from there. Yeah.
Exactly. Go and make it your own then, so and then the recipe evolves then, it becomes that family's, go-to, like my ciabatta or whatever, somebody might say, Worcestershire sauce, I might go with soy sauce, or I might go with an oil or whatever, or just a dry rub. Fine. That's just the way I like it. You guys, venison, is that your elk would be your preference, or?
So, yeah, I think right now I've got mostly whitetail deer in my fridge.
So the elk are mostly only hunted out west. Both of us are in the east right now, and the west is pretty far away from us. So we tend up with more whitetail, and then out west is more whitetail, mule deer, and elk
and pronghorn. I'm a big the pronghorn antelope. Yeah. Those are like my favorite to hunt and to eat. They're phenomenal. They just have like a different taste because they're not part of the deer family. They're their own, like, I guess whatever subspecies, genus, I don't know, whatever the biological term is. They are their own, and they're unique to North America.
Cool.
And they are just phenomenal tasting, in my opinion. Some people here hate them, but I think they're great.
And in terms of flavor, what is it? Is it like venison deer, or is it like beef, or somewhere in between?
It's very similar to deer. I think it's got more bold flavors, so they eat a lot of sage, so it carries like some sage flavor. And a lot of people say they're off-put by the taste, but I think that's largely due to the fact that they probably eat a lot of beef and don't eat things with like real flavor. Same for mule deer here. I think the big division between mule deer, which are most of the western part of the United States, so think like the Central Plains westward are going to be your mule deer, and then the Central Plains eastward are going to be whitetail deer. Whitetail deer tend to eat more like acorns. You'll find them more in agriculture areas. They're more like kind of corn-fed, a different flavor than like mule deer, which tend to have a wider variety of diets. They also live at like varying elevations, so they eat different things.
Cool.
So,
you know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Meet Factor, your loophole in the laws of mealtime. Chef-crafted meals delivered with a tap, ready in just 2 minutes. You know what's even smarter? Treating yourself without cheating your goals. Factor is dietitian approved, chef prepared, and you plated. Pretty smart, huh? Refresh your routine and eat smart with Factor. Learn more at factormeals.com.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Have you guys found, I from my taste palette has completely, I had beef for the first time, ironically, today. A guy had given me a present as a big T-bone, or sorry, a big cowboy steak, and like that, I threw it on the grill when I was doing some burgers for the kids. No, I enjoyed it, but I found, as my wild game journey has gone on, my taste buds have kind of evolved. I found beef very bland, while at the start I found game meat very strong. It was kind of like, whoa, man, this is my taste buds are going mad here. And now I've completely flipped where that I'm completely transfixed on the flavor, and even to a point where I got steak last year. Once last year I bought steak, believe it or not. I went down and I said, I'm going to get some nice ribeyes, and I was really excited just for something different,
Yeah.
And I put them on the grill, and I was completely disappointed,
Yeah.
Which was, I found that as kind of like a really kind of eureka moment where I said, it has to be that I've now gone back to where my taste buds probably should be. I've been kind of acclimatized or institutionalized that this is, chicken nuggets. We talked about them. I had one the other day. The kids had a play date or something. I've thrown on something really quick, some chicken, and I just ate one, and I could not get an ounce of flavor, like zero flavor. It was just like eating like a mushy, tasteless, and I found that very strange. Whereas if it probably went back to my youth or in my late teens, I was thought, oh, they're delicious, so it's really strange. I think you have to. I go around to schools as well as a youth development officer for my county, So I go around to schools, kind of trying to promote, the hunting and conservation, and we do it in a kind of fun way with. We bring some eggs into the school, and we get the kids to incubate them and hatch them out, and then we'll bring away the chicks when they're a couple of days old and bring them back as adults, and then we let them release them around the school and have feeders and stuff like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, it just gets them kind of, because a lot of them will never have seen, a wild
livestock,
a real wild animal.
Yeah.
They'll think a wild animal is a cow in a field. And I said that they ask me, obviously. You let them ask the questions and so on, but they'll ask, what do you hunt and do you eat it? And you'll see some of them like recoiling, because and then some of them will be really interested, and then, but I think once it gets the conversation going, I think that's a good thing, because not everyone's going to like it. I understand, and nor are we trying to push it, but we are saying that there's a really, at the minute in Ireland, there's a really sustainable, healthy food source, and we're saying just, as an alternative, try it. And I think there's a little bit of perseverance required as well at the start, because it's going to be a strange flavor compared to the bland crap that you're out to be eating for the last 25 years, but I think if you can get through that start, and I think you guys do a fantastic job of that with your cookbooks and stuff like that. And similar to what I'm saying there with if we can make it kind of amenable and show people how to do it, and not like be like us, I was just too stubborn to give up, So I kept persevering, and I'm going to like this, but I understand if a lot of people had started that way, they would have, that's not for me, and never went back. So I think we've a role to play to try and educate a little bit as well,
That's awesome. Adam, I think you had a question about Pigeon, and then we're closing in on the tail end of time.
Yeah, so just briefly, but I want to talk about it because you mentioned hunting pigeon season there, and I've heard it in the UK as well. It's a big deal, and in some parts of Europe, and in North America, it just isn't. No one I know hunts pigeon. It's seen as vermin. I think people just picture the New York pigeon with a cigarette butt in its mouth. But But the pigeons, like in agricultural areas, there's pigeons everywhere, and I think that's a big difference between hunting in your side of things and ours. Is that pigeon is a lovely ingredient?
Yeah,
and I wondered your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so we've two types of pigeon in Ireland. So we've what's called a feral pigeon, which is the town dweller predominantly. They do live in barns in the countryside as well, but they tend to be grey with like a purple stripe, and they're the guys that you want to shoo out your way on the pavement. So we don't eat them, but we do go after wood pigeon. They're the guys with the white stripe on the wing, and they have a really cool diet of you'll find them, especially around my area here, beech trees, the beech husk and stuff like that. So there'll be nuts and seeds and stuff they'll go mad after, and even they'll in crops, large tillage areas, they'll go and they'll do huge damage in a very short space of time. You'll see them, there'll be little circles where they'll come in and start working their way out. So they're the ones we go after, and they're a really, really lovely meat, real dark, almost like a duck colour meat. The way I predominantly like is cooked rare, fried in the pan, a bit of butter, that's it, slice it up. I'm happy. We've also done some variations of that, with butterfly it, and we dunk it in I think we had one of our chefs on in one of the earlier seasons. I think we have the recipe up. He leaves it in buttermilk, to help break down the enzymes a little bit, and then barbecue, and that was phenomenal as well, But yeah, it's a really underestimated game meat. It's probably been taken off a lot of the menus over the years because of the perception, like what you guys have said. But definitely in parts of the UK, in traditional hunting areas, and a little bit coming back here now, a really, really, really succulent, and for a small bird, a nice portion of meat as well.
Oh. Well, that's what we're going to hunt for when I come visit you.
Absolutely, yeah. Dude, if you're ever over here, guys, make sure and look us up. We'll be delighted to bring these out, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Show you some of the Irish countryside.
No, that would be great. Well, thanks again for coming on, Anthony. I really appreciate it. I've enjoyed the discussion thoroughly today, and it's cool. You shared a lot with us that's kind of opened, I think, our eyes and hopefully the listeners' eyes to like similarities and differences, which are cool.
Mm-hmm. It's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, everybody, for listening out there. We'll include all the show notes online, and then whatever podcast platform you're listening to, make sure you go follow the Irish Hunting Podcast, and then come back to our page and thumbs up, give us a review, tell us what you like, or tell us what you don't like. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.